As a web developer, I'm sure you've heard about Flex and you've used it and found it very useful. Today I want to talk about the Flex Grow and Flex Shrink properties, which are not that easy to understand for everyone, and I want to clarify how this actually works. Alright, so here I have an example that simply defines, well, a div example, and inside it we have two other divs. And this example is going to be a flex, a display flex, and both the other divs are going to have, for now, flex 1. What's going to happen if I try to see this? If I look around here and refresh the page, you'll notice that we have two tests, right? Test and test 1. They are both on the same line, and if I get their widths, you'll notice that one of them is, if I go here, one of them is 182.4 pixels, and the other one is, well, the same amount. So that's really nice. We got two equally large blocks, right? Now you might know that the flex property that I'm using here actually is a shorthand for three other properties. So, and we can see them inside DevTools. If we go over to styles and click the little arrow here, you'll notice that we see flex grow is set to 1, flex shrink is set to 1, and flex basis is set to 0%. Alright, so we can see that it's setting more than we actually might want, right? So how about we just simply set flex grow to both of them instead of setting flex, right? What's gonna happen then? And if I refresh this, whoa, something happened. Something moved to the left. Well, let's take a look. So the first one became 178 pixels, right? And the second one now is 186. How come we actually have two different sizes for these two blocks? Why are they actually different? Well, the difference is not really due to flex doing something weird for us. The difference is between the actual texts that I'm using here. The one is just test, and it's shorter than simply saying test 1. If I take out flex grow and say flex grow 0 on both of them, right, and refresh this, well, they're both going to be near each other, right? But if I try to select them, you'll notice that the first one is 22 pixels and the second one is 30 pixels, right? So that's what, 8 pixels, exactly 8 pixels of difference. The exact same amount we had before, right? Remember, we had 176 and 184, 8 pixels. So that means that flex is now taking into account the initial size. Why? That's because that's how flex grow actually works. Let's go back to both of them being 1. If I refresh this, right, so they are 178 and 186. Simple enough, 8 pixels of difference. Alright, so this is how flex grow actually works. First things first, we have a container that's much larger than the sum of widths of the elements, right? So here we have like something like, I don't know, 50 pixels, right? It was about there. And here we have a pretty big container of about 350 pixels or so, right? So what flex does is first allocate space for the initial element. So that's, well, we have 350 or so minus 50. So we have like 300 pixels left of empty space. That 300 is actually divided by a number, and that number is going to be the sum of flex growths inside its display flex. So if we go here and take a look, our sum is actually 1 plus 1. So it's going to be 2, right? So that 300 pixels are going to be split in 2, right? Like so. So we have 150 for the first element and 150 for the second element, right? That's how flex grow works. But why are they different then? That's because that 150 is actually added to the initial width, right? So basically the added space is the same in this case. So the issue is not with the flex, but with the initial size of the element, right? Since the initial sizes are different, the actual sizes of each of them is different after putting them in a display flex. Okay, so that didn't work. But what's wrong with just saying flex, right? If I say just flex, isn't it gonna work? Well, of course it's gonna work, because flex is actually a shorthand for multiple attributes, and one of them is flex basis. So what this flex basis says is that, well, consider the initial length of each element, or the initial width in this case of each element, to be 0 or 0%. That's the same thing. And because we told it that, now what the flex algorithm does is, instead of taking into account the initial length and then distributing the empty space, it's actually gonna take in the whole width of the container and split it into as many parts as we have flex growths. And that's, well, again, that's 2, right? This time it's going to split the whole container, which is about, that's 360 pixels, right? And it's going to take half of it and allocate it for the first element, and half of the other and allocate it for the second element. And that's how you get, well, 182, right? It doesn't take into account the initial length. That's what this flex basis does. And I can actually test this. If I try to say flex 2 on the first element, for example, we're gonna be sure that the first element is going to be twice as big as the second one. So if I hover over this guy, it's going to be 243, and the second one is 121.6. So yeah, exactly double, right? But if I just use flex grow, just like so, if I try to run this, you'll notice that the second element actually moved a little bit on to the left, and it's no longer exactly double. Here we have 230, and here we should have 150 and 115, but we don't have. We have 134, right? So what happened here is, again, initial sizes, empty space. Now it was split into 3 parts, right? Because we have here 2 plus 1, right? So it's split into 3 parts. 2 parts went to the first element, and 1 part went to the second element. And that's how flex grow actually behaves when you don't give it a flex basis. So I hope this video was useful for you to understand display flex a little bit better. Ask questions if you have any in the comments below, and thank you guys for watching.